Thank you very much. And I think we're in really good shape. I appreciate all who have filed their letters of interest. For those of you who have not, we'll be doing fierce shout outs on Monday if we don't see something. So please hurry those along. It just helps. What we're going to do today is just a quick run through some slides. There are a few that you've seen before, but they may bear repeating. In addition to that, our goal is to probably have a Google form out to you, probably by Monday, sometime over the weekend. It's done. We just want to rearrange it a bit. The NTIA requires a little bit of detailed information, so we'd like to get that out of the way up front. Our real purpose today is, as everyone knows, NATOA is off to Charleston next week for our annual conference. I feel we won't get a lot done on our grant program project next week, but I thought there would be a good time for a little bit of homework. There are programs to contemplate. There is a narrative to think about. There is a budget to sort of start drafting up. These are the items we're going to touch on today. So let me stop blathering on and just say that Tanya Rideouts on the call, as well as Lainey Williams, both are key to the success of this program, and they'll be jumping in as well with some information along the way.
Mike, I'm actually going to jump in right now, if that's okay, and just ask everyone, please, to mute yourself if you are not currently muted. Otherwise, I will be doing it for you. Thank you.
All righty. You'll let me know if it's me. Okay, great. We covered this slide before, and as you know, this grant application talks about covered populations. The 8 covered populations are identified here. The genesis, the origin of this is the Digital Equity Act itself. It identifies covered populations. So this is kind of part of federal law. This doesn't go away. So as you're looking at programs, and particularly for the PEG access centers on the call, I'm sure you're looking at your facilities and your resources and thinking, how do I shoehorn this in? How do I shoehorn that in? This is how. Identify how you're going to reach any, say, 2 or more of these 8 covered populations. And to help you do that, the one thing I did add to this slide today was the U.S. Census American Community Survey link. The reason I put that in there is it's a very useful tool. I think we might go back to it after the slide presentation. Lainey, remind me. And the reason, it's really easy to go on. It's very interactive. They've got a great mapping tool. You can drill down to your county. You can drill down to your census district. You can get a real sense of the covered populations and the percentage of the population within your community very, very easily. And that'll be the basis of really starting to go forward from there. You want to be able to say, well, there are, 23% seniors in the area that I serve. We'll revisit it in a few minutes. Let me slide through the rest of these slides rather quickly and see what's up. We talked a little bit about last time about the eligible uses for this grant funding of the Digital Equity Competitive Grant. Fairly straightforward stuff. What jumps out to me is, as you look at, there were really a half dozen here. This last one about asking the assistant secretary for approval. I don't think we're going to be going there. That sounds a little too complicated for me. But these other half dozen are ideas or uses that are perfect for PEG access centers and for city or county or town government access programs. So think about how you might tie into these things, particularly those of you who have space available in your PEG access center. You might want to look at it and say, how hard is it going to be to take a portion of our PEG center and turn it into a public access computing center? How hard is it going to be to take our videography trainings, our editing trainings, our production trainings, and turn them into digital skills training? I would venture not too hard. I think there's plenty of opportunity here. Remember, this is a grant for 4 years of programming. So we've got quite a long line in front of us if we're successful. Again, I think I had most of these ideas in the other day. Last time we talked, that first bullet, I probably should have spelt that out. OATS is the Older Americans Technology Service in New York City. Pretty cool program. And Oats and Tech Goes Home, that started in Boston, but I think it's in about 20 communities right now. Both of those programs offer a great curriculum. You may look at their curriculum online and decide, we can do stuff like that. So please explore, see what's out there for yourselves. I just want to put up a quick slide here and let you know who else is on the call. Some folks may not end up ultimately as participants in this grant. I think there's 2 or 3 who are a little bit on the fence. We'll find out soon enough. I think we're going to have to probably determine a cutoff by like the end of next week. Lainey, is that what we talked about yesterday, I think?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, and our rationale is that there's a very short runway to the September 23rd deadline for this grant. So if folks can't get up to speed now, pretty soon we're going to have to shut the door on any new applicants. We're pretty close to that today. And by next week, if people aren't forthcoming with the bits of information that we're needing in developing a plan, I don't know how we can make it to the 23rd that way. So it's all good, I think. Welcome to everybody who's here. I see 34 participants on the call. I think there's 34 or 35 people listed here. So we seem to be in pretty good shape today. Let's keep it going. The match. I did hear from a couple of people today, this week asking what could qualify for the match. The match actually has it's defined, I think, in the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, and it's pretty clear. It's not very hard. I'll send out some information or a link if you need to go dig deeper on it. The only real big caveat is you can't match it with something else that's federally funded. So if you're identifying work study students or AmeriCorps volunteers, these are federally funded programs. They won't hold up as an identified match. I don't think that's a huge problem, but just be careful about it. I think those 2 are probably a little bit of a red flag on this. And I also heard from a couple of people this week who seem to be struggling with identifying their state's digital equity plans. Again, I'm putting in the 2 links that you can get it. NTIA has it available at the bottom link, and the one above it, the Benton.org. Benton actually offers you 2 things. Benton will give you a link and provide you with your state's digital equity plan. You can also read on Benton a report on every single state's digital equity plans and the positives of it, the pluses, the negatives, etc. They've been tracking it all summer and late spring, really. So it's worth taking a peek at that. Again, this is one of those tandem things where you'll be looking at your state plan just to figure out, what is the state saying? Better yet, what is the state saying about my region? If you're a couple of cities around here, Austin, Portland, for instance, you'll be able to know what the state plan has from your community. Chances are you contributed to it. So just track that a little bit. Charlie Smith brings up a question from Denver, brings up a question about match. And I think let's pause for a second and answer that. Lainey had a conversation with me yesterday about this. The match in the grant is 10%, but there is a caveat that you get points if you go 20 or you go 30. Now, I think that might take a little creativity. You got to really think about, well, how much am I contributing personnel-wise, space-wise, programming that I'm currently doing? It may very well be that you're, if you're a part of a city or a larger organization, you may already be doing some digital equity work, which you could count as an in-kind match. And that might up you over 10%, might get you closer to 20 or 30%. What I don't know is that since we are a coalition filing, I don't see how that will improve our position as an overall grant application. Lainey, have I got a good read on that, or do you want to correct me? Please.
Hi, everybody. And I apologize for any background noise. I have a meeting that I had to travel to, so I'm actually sitting in my car. with this. Mike is correct. We do get extra points if we're able to have matches that are 20% and even more if it's 30%. However, as a partnership, if only one or two are able to go up to the 20% match, I don't think that that's going to give us enough to get those bonus points. It would have to be the entire group, is the way I'm reading it. That doesn't mean that I don't encourage you to look and see what you're already spending that could be considered a match to this. I do encourage you to take a look, and maybe we would be surprised, and certainly reach out to Mike and me if you want to discuss potential match ideas.
Great, thanks, Lainey. Okay, let's jump into the application details. You know what we'll do after this presentation this morning? We will send you not only the slides, but I'll put them in notes form, because I tried to put some decent notes in each of these slides to help you with links and further discussions. But basically, this is, again, got to tie into digital equity plan, got to touch on the covered populations, and some of our details will probably be covered within what's called the standard form 424. That's the application form that NTIA, that's the application form that every federal agency uses. Next is a little more on the application requirements. I don't want to belabor this at this point. I just want people to understand and appreciate the scope of work that they're going to have to contribute. So this is all about your space, right? So your community and who you serve and how you plan to serve them through this grant. But it's what are you going to do for activities? How are you going to do interventions? What barriers on the 8 populations? And what covered populations will you serve? Again, there are 8 covered populations. And Lainey, correct me again if I'm wrong, but I believe that the requirement or the minimum requirement would be that you address 2.
I
get that right?
I was trying to remember if it's you have to address at least 1, 2 is preferable, right? You always get more points for the more you do.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that within this application, hopefully we'll have a broad range, a diverse range of covered populations that are addressed in our various communities. We don't all have to be the same, so I'm not terribly worried about that. Okay. Again, we touched on this stuff, but I do want to flag that bottom bullet, the consolidated budget form. We won't be able to do that until we have folks' budget come in. The other thing is that we have not yet discussed, and we will at some future point, what the numbers are, I guess we'll say, in terms of the aggregate budget, the total budget. The cap, the ceiling on this grant is $12 million. But it is over 4 years. So we have to, I guess I'm just saying for now, let's be a little bit reasonable in terms of what we're going for. Because right now we're looking at roughly 30 partners. So it's going to be interesting how this gets spread out. I don't think it's a huge problem for the PEG access centers. I think you will come in with reasonable proposals. Cities are something on a much greater scale. So, Catan, Rebecca, talking to you guys, we'll see how it ends up, okay? I put this in just so you fully understand the activities that are covered. Okay, thanks. Okay, too much stuff on the application requirements. However, we did a letter of interest. At some point, a letter of commitment will be required from each partner. It'll be slightly more detailed than the letter of interest, but I think we can start with what we already have at that point. We'll just need a newer, more detailed reiteration shortly. The key thing to be working on over the next week, before Labor Day preferably, is getting your UEI, if you do not have one. That's the federal identifier number. You got to go on to sam.gov to get it. It's not tricky, but it is tedious and it can be a little bit challenging. And you're also going to have your federal tax number. Whether you're a nonprofit or a government, everybody has an EIN. It's really in the case of those who do not have a lot of employees covered by it or nonprofits, they got to pay taxes. Well, you're paying payroll taxes, so that's really what your EIN is. Usually, I think it's an 04 digit in the state, Massachusetts. I don't know where else, but okay. Sorry, I'm rambling at this point. Let me speed up a little bit. This header here is the header on the NTIA's application, and I've already taken this information and dropped it into a Google form, so all that information can flow back to us and populate this spreadsheet. It is not hugely challenging, but the nice thing about a Google form is you can cover maybe half of the stuff now, but you don't yet know allocation of funding. You may not be clear in your contribution to match. If you can't answer the questions yet, that's fine. You can go back later and answer the questions, okay? So hopefully we'll get this out to you before Monday. All righty, I think the information on this we sort of touched before, but this is after reading the NOFO and jumping in on a few other workshops around the grant application. It's just a sense of what is the NTIA doing around this. And again, what NTIA is doing is literally following the letter of the law, and the law is the Digital Equity Act. So, Lainey, I don't know if you want to take this slide. You make a better presentation on it than I do. This is well, actually, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were in your car. My apologies. Sorry. So, this is what they are looking for because of the Digital Equity Act, right? Workforce development and employment opportunities, access to quality education, access to healthcare, social and civic engagement, and community access to internet technology. I think, again, see, this is again the 2 or more goals. I think there is no question that a PEG Center could very easily cover 4 of these goals. You may not be able to address healthcare, but you could perhaps have a workshop on how people might, I don't know, sign up for their Social Security online, address their Medicare account online. I'm thinking of senior things because, technically I'm a senior. Don't tell anybody.
Mike, can I
yes,
jump in?
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Absolutely, it would be.
Yell at me if the background noise is
Nope, we're good.
Too much. What Mike and I had talked about earlier in the week, as I was imagining things, think about your communities that maybe have a slightly older population, have an unemployed population, perhaps justice impacted individuals are living in your community. And so how would you do access to healthcare? Perhaps you have a room that's not particularly used. You have equipment that has idle times. So you could bring people in as trainers to teach your community, this is how we do telehealth. Right? That's one of the big new things these days as far as healthcare. Being able to meet people where you are. And so you would do training sessions on how to use the technology, how to be safe, how to make sure that personal information is not as easily hacked. And then perhaps provide a couple of rooms so that folks who live in your community can have telehealth appointments later over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years, or hopefully, right? One of the goals of this grant program is to create something that is sustainable in your community. So not just for the 4 years that the funding is available, but something that could live on. So that was my big brainstorming idea, is giving populations that may not have easy access to healthcare or education, you drop in the thing, a way to access that. So that's my idea. And now I'm going to shut up.
No, thank you. That was very helpful. I'm going to go out on a limb here and make an assumption that most people on this call may have already signed up for a listserv at another organization called the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, NDIA. There are forums for discussion on NDIA, much more detailed, actually almost too high a level of detail on digital equity and inclusion, but they can be very helpful. So, and it's not hard. I don't even know. I think you can sign up and get on without any cost. Actually, I think I know we're paying a cost. I'm paying a cost, but I think you can do it for free. And there are people more than willing to answer very specific questions you might have around unique programming that might address any of these goals here. Okay. This was a larger slide in our last presentation. We kind of shrunk it down a little bit just to sort of give you some clarity as to the evaluation process by NTIA on the Digital Equity Competitive Grant. No real surprises here. It's all very, very straightforward, I think. Key for us is identifying the need, the purpose, and what benefits you can bring, right? Okay, these slides, again, I will send this out, the slide deck out shortly after this call. This was in last week's. Some of this stuff is a little repetitive, but they're all very useful sites and very easy to navigate as you're looking for answers. If you're struggling with something, please give a shout to me or Lainey or Tanya, and we'll get back to you with what we know that can help you. The SAM, hopefully at this point, everybody has at least visited SAM once and gotten started on their UEI. More links, and I think we might be wrapped up here. Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to end that there, and I'm going to switch for a second and take a quick pivot. When we were on the second slide, we talked about the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census, excuse me. And this is their map link. So when you go to the ACS site, oh, hang on one second. I have to switch. What do I have to do here? I have to switch my, I'm going to stop that share and share to a different one. I apologize, folks. On the wrong tab. Okay, hopefully now you're seeing, or you will be seeing. There we are. Took me a few seconds, but this is the U.S. Census, the American Community Survey study. You know, the census is decennial, right? It's every 10 years. The American Community Survey is sort of an extrapolation, and they do that, I think it's annually. And they ask 2 or 3 questions around connectivity. Now, they use the same questions every year. So I think they've been using questions on how people are connected to the internet for about, I want to say 12 years, and I might be mistaken on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone who knows. The 3 questions really are, you know, do you have, it doesn't even say broadband, but are you connected to the internet? And I think it also asks if you're connected via a smartphone. So it's very limited information, but what's cool about this map is, I think I'll just try to bump in here a little bit. Showing Idaho. Well, I don't really need to show Idaho, but let me see if I can make this. Unfortunately, I can't make it very, very much larger, but I could go into any community in this state, and I will see very quickly an identification of the percentage, the total population, the covered population total, and what percentage breaks down into the 8 categories of what they define as covered populations. This is available at the state level, and it's available much more discreetly at the local level, whether that be county or city. I don't know if it goes all the way down to census tract, because again, this is really survey information, not census information directly. Believe me, you'll find this very, very helpful. Please take a look at it, and you'll be very appreciative at how it helps you to understand what's the need in my community. Chances are, if you look at your state plan, they're going to be pointing at this too. Not every state has done a comprehensive survey or analysis of the need in their state. Most of them have gone to the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census and extrapolated that information. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Hi, how's everyone? Now I see a full screen with everybody on it. The floor is open. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I apologize if I ran through this too quickly, but I wanted to keep it under a half hour because I wanted to allow time for some questions and also not really interfere with your Friday before one of the last weekends of the summer.
Hi, Mike. This
Hey,
is
Dwight.
How you doing, man?
Very
I'm
good,
sorry.
Mr. Williams. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in about, how many, 6 years maybe, huh? 5
Yeah,
years?
it's been a while, man.
All right.
And I'm sorry I came in a little bit late. I had
Not at
a
all.
staff I had to talk with a little bit,
Great.
but I really have one specific question
Yep.
along the lines of multi-channels, because Houston has 4 channels.
Right.
You know, as you know, we have a huge population, and I'm getting ready to talk to them this weekend about putting all 4 of those channels into a combined effort along education, communications, and also government, so that we can find a way to fit in as much as we possibly can and then share across all 4 channels. So if that's something that seems doable and acceptable, I will definitely move forward on that.
I think that sounds like a fabulous idea. For those of you who have not met Dwight before, in an earlier life, Dwight was heading up the government access program in Houston. He retired. We lost track of him for a year or two. And then he resurfaced at the community access of Houston. Your name is Houston Media Source, right, Dwight? So his plan is perfect. I think that's the way to go with the solution here. Pool your resources and see how it works. Dwight, I would guess, in that you're a nonprofit yourself, I would guess that you'd be the lead and run everything through you. I
That would
think
be
that
a
would
good
probably be
guess.
clean, you know.
That would be a good guess if I
Yep,
have my
yep,
way.
Yep. Well, you may want to talk to Glenn Williams, who I see also on the screen here from Boston. In a lot of the access delivery, I guess you'd say, in communities that still have strong access, Houston, Boston are doing things very similar. They're so intricated. It's a little hard to say where one ends and the other begins. Glenn has on his staff people who work for city TV programming constantly, and it's back and forth all the time. It's probably the way it should work. It's a pooling of resources for more effective programming. But together, I think you can make a great grant application here to address digital equity.
Yeah, I'd like to talk with Glenn and kind of get an idea of where he is in this process. We are actually kind of siloed in the past, and I have since coming on board with the public access, tried to start that conversation of we need to have a mutual plan amongst all 4 channels for media and education and those types of efforts across the city.
Dwight, are you going to NATOA next week?
No, I was hoping to. The travel and you know, getting in reservations and all of that was real late for me. I'm just gonna push that aside this year and focus on TATOR and see if I can get in there and cause a little trouble there, and then come and affect you guys later.
Well, let's make it a
Well,
point to exchange information and contact. It'd be an honor to talk to you, Dwight, about what's going on.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to say welcome back, Dwight. We'll be sending you NATOA board application soon for your other second life. A return.
Wait a minute, I've been there and done that, man. Come on.
Oh, that's all right. You were really good at it. We'll have you back.
Hey, look, I did get my my money all together to get membership for us, and we're going to be coming on board with membership very soon, and then I'm going to go to TATOA and then you know, try to conference with them and start next year with you guys.
Great. Thanks, Dwight. Much appreciated. John Morrison Winters asked a question about the thresholds. John, I think hopefully we addressed that already, but yeah, the bonus points, it is not fully clear to me when you would have a lot of applicants. I think you would need all applicants to be at a higher level. and I'm not sure I'm not sure how weighted the contribution is. It's a little vague. I'm sorry if I'm not giving a very direct answer here, but I think hopefully you understand me. Alan Bashong asked about, oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to clarify a little bit.
Thanks.
So, and it's just kind of to think about for people who are interested in partnering in terms of, if it's the more the better, like if as a coalition, as a consortium, we're at 11%, is that better than being at 10%? And if so, then it's kind of like behooves us all to try to get as much match as possible, versus like if if we don't get any bonus recognition until we hit that 20% threshold, then I agree with you. It's like, let's just all focus on getting up to 10%.
Right. Yeah. And I'm prattling on here a little bit, John, but Seattle, like Boston, you can think of things such as community centers and making those resources available as drop-ins and cover them under the umbrella of this grant application. And that can tremendously increase your in-kind contribution, because then you're talking about staff at remote or satellite sites, and also those physical facilities as well as the in-kind contribution. Audrey Duncan up in Bronx. Audrey, I think you're on the call, hopefully. And she called the other day asking some questions, and I think she's exploring kind of an interesting partnership with Fordham. They have apparently some community center within the university, and she's thinking if she can pair that up with, again, I look at that and I say, well, that sort of, if they're willing to do it, that will address a lot of the in-kind challenge right there. You can start to talk about the value of the drop-in space, or the value of the training rooms, the staffing that helps to support it, et cetera.
Yes, I'm here, and Michael Max,
Thanks, Audrey.
Director, is also here. So we would
very good.
A lot of the activities already fall on us, and they're sort of just build on things we already do. But yes, Fordham and community, Fordham University would be a great partner for an additional location and some new activities.
Great. Thank you. I wish you the best of luck. I hope that works for you.
Thank you.
Please let us know, actually. This may be something, hopefully by next week, we may just get a little listserv going, or actually I've been sort of blind copying people on communications just to cut down on your mail traffic. But we might set up a small listserv or something like that, so that this group can easily communicate just quick questions they might have as the process proceeds, and also to get ideas from each other. True partnership, a lot more sharing would be great. We're going to help to facilitate that. So, Chris Vertigo had a question. PEG facility program staff, live channel programming. Chris, yeah, live channel programming is, how do I put this? I think that's what's unique about PEG and reaching out to communities. So many isolated citizens, right? And isolated, I'm using kind of a generalized term there, but covered populations can be isolated, right? Seniors, people who are at home, people with disabilities, and their source of information oftentimes in our communities is the public, educational, and government channels of those communities. You can reach them through the channel, and I'm a little off base with this one, so tolerate me for a second, but I believe that we need to tell a story to NTIA about our PEG access centers and what they mean to the community, what they mean to the disenfranchised in our communities, right? We run linguistic programming aimed at minorities, and usually produced by community organizations for certain minority groups. We do the same for persons living with disabilities. We do the same for veterans. We do the same for those who are poor, who are in need. We need to tell that story and say, we're already reaching the populations you describe, NTIA, as covered populations. We communicate with them what we know about our community and what is out there to help them. We can use those same channels, those PEG channels, to reach out. Any other organization is going to propose to put something online to reach out to populations who are not connected. That's not going to work. However, with a cable connection, it is going to work. So I think that is a narrative that we all have to sort of share in and make sure that folks are aware of it.
Okay.
When I said I'm going out on a limb, I suspect the evaluators and the new staff of NTIA that has been ramped up to address all the Digital Equity Act funding. I suspect they're of a younger generation, don't know a heck of a lot about PEG operations, their mission in their service. And I think it's our job to educate them.
Right. I mean, we still should be streaming, of course.
Yep.
But also teaching.
You're gonna stream. You're gonna stream anyway, right, Chris? You're gonna flick it on
exactly,
anyway. But
exactly.
Yeah,
but also teach people how to stream or how to receive a stream.
That's right.
So there's that part of the education could be built into the plan. Okay.
Yep.
Whatever.
And even someone mentioned it, I think, on the last call. I'm getting a little mixed up as to too many calls. But at any rate, someone talked about closed captioning and training around it, or development of closed captioning. There's an equipment cost to closed captioning, but it addresses one of the covered populations, right? So if you're contemplating, boy, I'd like to upgrade to closed captioning and help, and maybe I can get out to some people who are deaf or hard of hearing through closed captioning, I think that's a decent rationale for including that in one of your program proposals.
Could our PEG funding that buys captioning hardware be part of the match? Or does it have to be?
You know what? Yes. Well, yeah, I think so. If provided that you're identifying persons with disabilities among the covered populations you're targeting, and specifically those who are deaf or hard of hearing, right? Okay. Tanya or Lainey, have I hit all the questions here, or am I missing something? Thank you for putting in the links. That was great. So I think someone asked about a template for the application. There are two templates. There's one, actually there's three, I think. There's one that's just details. That's the Google form that will go out this weekend. There's also a budget template and a narrative template. We will share those with you as well. The initial application template does have like a block for narrative, but I think they're only looking for like 50 words, just a very high level expression of what you're doing. The rest will get fleshed out in the coming weeks. I hesitated because the NTIA was supposed to have a workshop on, I think it was the budget yesterday, and I logged in at 3 o'clock, and I guess, I don't know, something got mixed up. I think it's next week. So we don't have all the information we need yet, but we will probably share that by the end of next week. Well, the end of next week is Labor Day, so you'll see it on Tuesday after Labor Day. All right, any other questions for now?
Mike,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
Yeah, hi, Mike. Sorry, this is Natalie Walsh. Just a quick question.
Hi,
about-
Natalie. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
A ballpark budget cap that you might be expecting from each of these partners. So you said that the total grant, if I understood it, that you're looking to apply for is 12 million for this grant.
Yeah, the
for this
window
group?
is whatever it is, 2 or 3 million to 12 is the total. If our coalition grant application is over 12 million, it needs like a special dispensation from the assistant secretary. That would be Alan Davidson. So yeah, we are sort of trying to keep this reasonable. I can't say today, maybe we'll know better by the end of next week into the Tuesday after Labor Day, how many total members we will have on our application. I did show you a sense of what they are, so you can kind of figure out how many are PEG centers. But the big challenge for us, I think, is it depends on which way some of the city engagement goes. How much the cities in this are exploring through this grant application. In many cases, the larger cities, John Winters, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing you're probably already participating as well in a state level or a regional level application, but I might be mistaken there. I don't know for certain.
Yeah, we're looking at it.
Yeah, I figured so. Okay, good. So that doesn't really answer it for you. Oh, I'm sorry. I should introduce Natalie. Natalie is from UCSD, University of California, San Diego TV, and has joined the coalition. Welcome. I don't know if that actually answers your question, but I didn't want to on the front sort of say, here are the caps to everybody, or, this is the aggregate cap or something like that. I just wanted you to know the window we're dealing with. Look, if you have a strong application and something you feel strongly about, let's entertain it and see if there's a way we can fit it in.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, all righty.
Mike, this is Lainey
Hi,
again,
Lainey.
and sorry, I continue to be in my car.
That's okay.
I wanted to talk about two things. One, what Natalie just asked. So it's $5 to $12 million over 4 years, meaning potentially $3 million a year. So think about that as you're thinking about your project and what
Right.
the budget limitations might be.
Yep.
So that's the consideration.
Which is,
And I wanted to jump back to the match question that I think John, and I'm sorry I missed the last name, asked.
John Morrison Winters from Seattle. Yep.
So definitely 10%. That has to be the match minimum. We don't get more official points until we hit 20%. And then if we were to hit a 30% match globally, there's a next tier of extra points. So from 10% to 20%, in the evaluation criteria, there's no official measure for giving us extra points. However, there are, some of this is, discretionary is not quite the right word, but depending on what the story is that we're telling, if globally we have 11% or 12% match, I think it is worth pointing out. And it may give us extra points in some of the other areas of the merit consideration, even though it's not explicit in awarding points.
Thanks, Lainey. That's helpful. So I'm sure all of you did a little quick back of the envelope and figured out that that's an average of $100,000 if we're at 30 applicants. I'm not sure we're going to be at 30 coalition partners. We could be at less than that. Chances are we will end up a little bit less than that. I sort of have a sense of who's here. That'll become very clear within about a week. So let's say it's 100,000 is the average. That's 25 a year. So we're only, how do I put this? We're talking about access centers and funding that would last for 4 years. So that average is not bad for an access center. Now for a city, it's almost like it's kind of too small for a city, but our goal through this program is not to fund the city's entire digital equity initiative, but rather to try to address it within the scope of the access community or the cable office communities of those cities or departments of those cities. I hope that helps. I'm being a little vague, intentionally so.
And this is Lainey again, piggybacking off of that. The minimum that they're expecting applications for is $5 million, although of course they've said if there's a smaller project that is very meritorious, then they would make a smaller amount available. I think one of the things to think about is that this is an opportunity for groups who you might not have a $5 million ask, right? So for smaller groups to band together to create a $5 million application, this is an opportunity for smaller groups to create a $12 million application.
Right. I mean, none of us are very clear on why the NTA rushed this out kind of over the summer, if you will, or in the month of August, and then have it due shortly after Labor Day. I think they're anxious to get this out the door. I think there's some additional funding that could be rolled into this program, but there's a timing issue. They have to, I forget exactly what it is. They have to be able to, when they issued the notice of funding opportunity for this on July 23rd, I think it was, the clock started to tick. And if they're successful in getting this money locked in, the initial tranche of money, they're going to be throwing another, I don't even know how much money it is. I think it's, I can't say off the top of my head. I think it's another couple of $100 million. If they don't make their window of opportunity, they have to issue another NOFO, and they really are trying to avoid doing that. So that's why this window, this summertime application window, and a short window, if you ask me, to submit grant application. I think that's why it exists. They're trying to figure a way to get as much money out the door as possible. There may have been political consequences in deliberating that, but I don't really know. Above my pay grade. So, all righty. Tanya, have I not addressed some of the questions or comments in here? If anyone wants to speak up, please do, but I think we're in pretty good shape, and I could give you a few minutes back in your hour if you would like.
I think that Brian had an interesting question. Is this something that needs to be dealt up before next February?
Oh, Brian Roberts' comment about the wrapped up during the current administration.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was what they were thinking back in June, and maybe through or May and June when they were planning to issue this. In late July, things changed. So I don't know. I mean, yes, Brian. I think that was initially the thought. I don't think that's a requirement anymore. So maybe they roll it out a little bit later. The only caveat I will put in there is that Congress has been very aggressive with the NTAA in the process and the speed with which they're getting money out the door. And I'm sure the NTIA is also looking at this and saying, our goal is to get this money out. You have to remember when the Digital Equity Act got rolled up inside the infrastructure bill, remember that was going to be all stimulus money during COVID, right? The goal was at the time initially to make sure this money got out into the community to save our economy. This money's a little late getting out, but we shouldn't complain because this is the only one that we can make an application for. All righty. Well, if no one else has any other questions or comments to add, I'm happy to close this call. We will send you out that Google form. It will look a lot like the application that we'll ultimately be filling out. So if it seems a little kludgy, my apologies. It was designed by a federal employee, not me. I think we'll have another check-in probably sometime after Labor Day, maybe later in that first week. But we will communicate with you with that Google form, chase down any letters of intent that we have not yet received. When you start to fill out the Google form, you're going to say, I already gave them this information. Apologies. The NTIA wants it in a certain form, and we're trying to conform with that. The budget in the narrative, you can't get there yet. The equipment values, you're probably not there yet. But it's an iterative process. You can always go back to this Google form in a week or two and give better answers. Okay? Alrighty. With that, I'd like to say thank you for everybody who is on the call. Please give me a quick shout out and I will share it with Tanya and Lainey if you don't already have their email addresses. Any questions or any comments? Other than that, I wish you a good weekend. For those of you who are going to NATOA's conference next week, I hope to see you there. Should be an exciting time. And you will hear from us by Monday and again probably after Labor Day. All right? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you,